Now, Minecraft's original concept is state foundational, by which I mean you're dropped into an isolated world and you need to survive. Now, to do that, you have to be constructive, building shelters, crafting material, planting crops, and trading. But you also, and this is the fun part of the game, you have to be extremely destructive. You have to cut down trees, you have to mine, you have to kill mobs, this kind of people, and you have to randomly slaughter animals and laugh a lot, which is basically what my son does all day. Now, essentially, the message of Minecraft is one of creativity, ingenuity, and curiosity. And a lot of the game is just making stuff or seeing stuff that's really cool. Now, as such, the game bucks the trend of most video games, which are by definition founded on a symbolic representation of violence. As the critic James Ivory says in his history of the video game, given that much of the cultural history of sport, yeah, I'm going to slag off sports as well, why not, is arguably based on imitation of war, video games' emphasis on action, simulations of sport and war can be viewed as a product of received thematic ancestry based in many centuries of structured games and leisure activities devised to simulate the action of mortal combat. So if you take sport plus violence, that is nearly all video games, at least it was when he was writing this about 5 years ago. And therefore, by definition, most video games are fundamentally violent. In other words, all video games are about violence, even when they appear not to be so. That Minecraft is different is why, for example, the Irish school system is to make an educational copy of Minecraft available to every school child in Ireland. It was this creative side of the game that convinced me to allow my kids to play Minecraft, a rare game in that it is not violence. I thought this would be a creative possibility for them to not just be weirdos in their school, but to sort of integrate as much as children of mine could ever integrate into normal society, which is about 3%. Now, the problem was that my son became so addicted to the game of Minecraft that when he insisted he go and do something else, like a good middle-class pirate would do, a good middle-class pirate would be even more interesting. He became violent towards me, perpetuating the cycle of kicking me in the peanuts violence that we discussed last week. So my wife, in a characteristic moment of anger, violently deleted the game from all our devices while my son screamed and begged at her feet. True story, Donald Trump was a true story. The next day, all was well again in our house, because our kids found out that you can watch other people play Minecraft on YouTube, which meant they could join in their friends' conversations without having to become tiny psychos, or at least without becoming any more psychopathic than kids naturally are. Their need for violence was assuaged by a substitution, or what René Girard would call a scapegoat. The game Minecraft was sacrificed by my violent wife so that our kids could remain parts of our family community and at the same time their community of school friends. It was beautiful. Now, my kids watch these videos all the time, and then they blithely discuss, you know, the Hunger Games. They talk like that, you know, the Hunger Games, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Now, according to William Golding's classic 1954 novel, which we're looking at this week, Lord of the Flies, for children, it is. So in the Stampy Hunger Games, you all go in your pods, and then a countdown goes, and then you have to go and find cute things, cakes and so on, whilst at the same time killing each other. That's the kind of Christmassy message that it has. Now, in Lord of the Flies, if you recall, a bunch of public schoolboys are being evacuated from the far east of our crumbling empire during the war, and their plane crashes on a desert island where they have to organise to survive. In other words, an example of the social contract. They have to elect a leader, in other words, a Leviathan, and they eventually succumb to civil war and the state of nature, perpetual war of competition that both Hobbes and Pinker warned us of last week. Now, in effect, the boys are subjected to the Minecraft Hunger Games worldview, or more accurately, both Minecraft and the Hunger Games are versions of the worldview presented initially in Lord of the Flies. So they're stranded on an isolated world. First, they have to build shelter and find sustenance. Then they explore that world. Finally, as is always the case, they turn on each other and fight over fire, food, and finally power. Now, of the two main contestants on Hunger Games 23, catching flies, instead of fire. Thank you. Thank you. So I made that bit up. It was a bit crap, but I do have a cold, but I did get one laugh, which is more than I got last year. Ralph is the least effective at founding a state. So Ralph is the kind of heroic character. And normally is the one that you're supposed to associate with in a positive way, but in fact he is quite rubbish. So Ralph's problem is he tries to maintain the idea of a state culled from his own school experiences, in a territory where school no longer makes any sense. Now, Jack's qualifications for leading his hunter pack are that he can hit a high C, as can we all, and was a choir leader in any case, so he has leadership qualities. He is not cool like Ralph, and doesn't lead through popularity but through aggression. From the offing, this is an ethos of violence towards his choir, who frankly all choir members perhaps deserve a bit of violence. Ooh, controversial. Towards Piggy, and of course towards the pigs on the island himself. Unlike Ralph, Jack binds his tribe together, rather than loosely assembling them every now and again for the power of the conch. His choir have a uniform in common, which is very SS meets Harry Potter, darling. It's marvellous. And when that deteriorates, he uses masks, paint, dance, poetry. Those of you doing English and drama will be aware of the bonding qualities of this. And his leadership rituals to make his leadership stick, based on the coherence of his tribe. Now Simon, I associate a little bit with Simon. He's the weird mystical boy who wanders off on his own, who slowly goes insane on an island called Stoke-on-Trent. I mean, on an island without any name or any particular place, not similar to Stoke-on-Trent himself. He has a vision of the Lord of the Flies, which like totally freaks him out, man. And because he's got no Wi-Fi on the island, so he just can't Instagram that weird shit, he has to flee down the hill and accidentally plunge into the orgy of meat-eating ritual that's going on at the bottom. This mad ritual of the feast, overseen by Jack, sucks all the boys into a Dionysiac performance where all sense of individuation is lost. When Simon stumbles into the mummers' ring, and this is why you should really avoid Morris dancing, because they get more and more drunk as they go from one place, and eventually they look for a sacrifice, and it can be brutal. Until the mummers' ring and is killed, and a profound, what I would call, indistinction is in play. Indistinction. So first, the boys are unable to distinguish Simon from the beast, the pig, or the big beast, the collective fear that grips the community. This indistinction between the human and the animal, which is key to our world as well, gives the boys license to murder Simon, and it not be called murder, because in the moment of them killing him, Simon isn't Simon anymore. When Ralph terms it such later, and says we murdered Simon, even Piggy won't accept it, preferring to call Simon's death just an accident. Now this relates very closely to René Girard's theory of the law of substitutive, sacrificial violence. Simon needs to be made to resemble a pig so that he can be killed and the beast assuaged. And this process of taking humans and making them resemble non-humans is going on all the time in the West at the moment. It's a very common procedure. A classic example of this, actually, is the controversy around the children or non-children coming over from the jungle. So these children had to be made to resemble adults so that they could then be seen to be evil because they're pretending to be older than they are so that they can escape from Calais. And so constantly having these subtle ways of slightly modifying the look of somebody so that we can demonise them. It goes on all the time. We needed Gary Lineker to save us, for God's sake. That's how bad things have got.